Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the June 2022 WordPress News Roundup here on iThemes Training. My name is Nathan Ingram. I am the host here at iThemes Training, and each month we take a look across the landscape of WordPress news, and I bring you a few things that I think deserve our attention, particularly for those of us who are building and managing WordPress sites for clients. And we have a lot to talk about today. Brand new release of WordPress, a bunch of, at least one interesting acquisition I think is worth watching, and lots of things. So if you are just joining us in the chat, I'm going to drop in one last time here the slide link. This gives you the link to everything you have on the screen here. Also, it will, if you're watching this on the replay, just click the download handout button, which is just below and to the right of the video. And this gives you all the links, because there are some things you might want to click and read more about yourself. And there they go. So let us know where you're logging in from today over in the chat room. Just click on, pop out the chat window, and you can communicate with me and everybody else. All right, well, let's get started, shall we? A lot to talk about today, beginning with news from Core. We had a major release of WordPress a few weeks ago. This is WordPress 6.0 Arturo. And by the way, some time ago, WordPress departed from the standard, the way that they had, the WordPress has been doing version numbers. So every major release now, like 6.0, that sounds like it's a major release, but actually WordPress 5.9 and 5.8 had more in it. Really, 5.8 was the big full-site editing release, and 6.0 was really a minor bump to core WordPress. So just because it's 6.0, you might look at that version and think, wow, there's a lot more going on here than maybe 5.9, but really, it's just the next number up. So WordPress now, if it gets to the .9, it's going to go to the next number. So yeah, it's generally positive response. It was pretty simple. Now, so there's a comment in the chat. It didn't auto update. No, because it is a major WordPress version number. The second dot by default will update automatically on your WordPress site. So like 5.9.2 to 5.9.3 will automatically update. But any of the dots like 5.8 to 5.9 or 5.9 dot whatever to 6 does not auto update unless you specifically enable that in WordPress. So when I say it's a minor update, I'm just talking about the feature set, but it would not have automatically updated, right? So very few issues to report. We updated all our sites last week. I usually press pause on that for a little while, a week or two after a major version release. No issues at all. This was an incremental update to full site editing, along with a few other things that we've talked about in the past. So there are some who are reporting measurable speed improvements, a little bit here, a little bit there, and that's because of the work of the new core performance team that is working on making WordPress faster, which is something we've talked about over the last several months here on the News Roundup. All right, so let's just take a look at some of the stats related to WordPress 6.0 Arturo. 36% of WordPress sites around the world have updated to 6.0, 20% holding fast at 2.9, but really that's, 56% are running within the last version or so of WordPress. So that's pretty good. Of course, we still have some of those really old holdouts here, even almost 5, actually, let's see, that's, about 5%, it looks like still. No, that's a 5.7. So it's whatever this little sliver here is. Anyway, a little bit still holding on to way back to 4.7. Still a lot of old releases in here, security issues and so forth. But the vast majority of sites are healthy and working on the latest couple of versions of WordPress. Some response from the Advanced WordPress group. By the way, if you are a WordPress professional, probably makes sense to join the Advanced WordPress users group on Facebook. It's been around for a long time. It's where a lot of advanced discussion about WordPress occurs. And founded by Matt Cromwell, who is also the co-founder of GiveWP. It's a great group of folks to be involved with. There's a pretty well acceptance across the board that Gutenberg still isn't really ready yet, particularly with full site editing. If you're like me, maybe you've rolled it out on some portions of a website, or if you are, you may have started building simple websites with the block editor, but still it's kind of hard to build complicated websites with the block editor. It continues to get incrementally better though over time. And we still, it's just years above where it was when it was first released. There are some experts in the group are saying that they're going to wait a few more releases until Gutenberg is more robust and stable before adopting it as the platform for their clients. Matt Cromwell, again, the co-founder of GiveWP and one of the founders of this advanced WordPress group and one of the active moderators, talks about how WordPress 6, the main goal was to enhance full site editing to make it more available and attractive to WordPress implementers. It is the future of WordPress, but only if it gains traction. So we'll have to see. There's a lot of things that still have to be figured out and worked out in order for full site editing to really take hold in the WordPress community. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be something to watch. Something else that's going on is just kind of looking at WordPress and PHP. PHP 7.4 is recommended still for WordPress. WordPress still only supports 8.0 in beta. So you might still find some weirdness, for lack of a better term, with implementation of PHP 8 on your sites. You just kind of have to test and see. A lot of plugins don't fully support PHP 8 still. This is something we'll definitely be watching over the next few months because the end of life for PHP 7.4 is later this year in the fall. Stacy's saying in the chat it's November. Yeah, so it's later this year. Definitely something to be watching, and I would fully expect WordPress to recommend 8 as the preferred PHP version before that time. But currently 7.4 is recommended. Interesting stats about those who contributed to WordPress 6. 519 people from 53 countries and 134 different companies contributed to WordPress 6. A lot of contributors. It's great to see the openness of the open sourceness of WordPress happening. 129 people contribute to WordPress core for the very first time. So about a quarter of all the contributions to WordPress 6 were from first-time contributors. That's awesome. That just shows how much the platform continues to grow and people are joining the WordPress world, either as existing users who started to contribute or as folks who are new to the platform have started adding. So it's a good thing. Interesting, funky little graph here, just kind of showing the trends of the number of contributors for release. So pretty average, kind of an aberration here with WordPress 5.3, but pretty average on the number of contributors, new and experienced contributors shown here. So if you're a graph person, you'll sink your teeth into that. The USA is still the #1 nation of contributors to the WordPress project. Russia is next with 373, which is still led by Sergey of Yoast. Australia follows with 308, and France, Poland, UK, Greece, Georgia, Spain, Sweden. But the number of contributions from the US is declining relatively as more contributors from other countries are increasing their participation. So that's a good thing. Here's a bubble graph that shows all the different countries and who's been contributing. So that's pretty cool to see all that, as well as the companies. By far the lion's share coming from Automatic, which runs WordPress.com, and a number of WordPress plugins. And you have also a number of well-known companies in the WordPress space who are sponsoring contributions to the project. So if you want to learn more about WordPress 6, we had a great event with Timothy Jacobs, who is the lead developer of iTheme Security a couple of weeks ago. Timothy's also a core contributor as well as the maintainer of the WordPress REST API component. So he's neck deep basically in the WordPress ecosystem. And Timothy did a great walkthrough of WordPress 6 and some of the new full site editing features, including full site editing, as well as some of the new patterns and so forth and how those work. Really great webinar. If you missed that, you can watch the replay at the link on this slide. So looking forward to what's going on or potentially going to happen in WordPress 6.1. These are some of the things that are out there, maybe making site navigation a smoother experience. I think that's needed. The navigation experience in WordPress could definitely stand some improvement. This will let folks zoom in and out while working. I also expect some focus on patterns, block patterns, pattern library. All this is part of the future of WordPress that's being laid out. 6.1 will likely bring better support for patterns and custom post types, block types, and a better experience locking patterns so that if you don't have the right user role, you won't be able to edit that part of the page. That's a good thing. and managing saved patterns across that WordPress install. Also, they're looking at this new aerial view, which is kind of cool. I really, really like this UI and other ways to make it easier to interact with patterns. So pretty nice, really slick editing experience. This is not rolled out even in the Gutenberg plugin yet, but it's something that's being talked about significantly. There's a great article on WP Tavern, as expected, on WordPress 6.1 and what might be included, and I would encourage you to take a look at that. We can probably also look at improvements in global style interfaces, design tools updated to support responsive typography and managing web fonts. The web fonts API was a big addition to WordPress 6.1, allowing you to, in a standard way, bring in web fonts to WordPress. There hasn't been that up until now, which is, I think, kind of a glaring omission in core WordPress. Yeah, so as we look at the project Gutenberg itself, they're looking to phase out phase 3 of Gutenberg, which, pardon me, phase 2 of Gutenberg, which is the customization phase, and beginning the collaboration phase. That's phase 3 of Project Gutenberg in 2023. Multilingual phase, probably sometime in 2025. That's going to be a big deal, bringing multilingual support into core WordPress, which is wonderful. Matt Mullenweg, the founder of WordPress, says he thinks that multilingual is probably going to be one of the most complex things we bring into core, even more so than blocks. And when you really start thinking about what it takes to get multilingual into core, yeah, it's going to be quite a job. There's no date for the 6.1 release of WordPress yet. Matter of fact, there's really nothing on the official WordPress roadmap at the link I've given you on the screen here. It just says 6.1 date to be determined. So there's not even any minor, like no minor releases scheduled that we're even aware of at this point on that roadmaps page. So let's move into what's happening in Project Gutenberg. Again, that's been a while since I mentioned this, but really important to understand what Project Gutenberg is. Project Gutenberg is not the block editor. Gutenberg is bigger than the block editor. It is the project in which all this new development to revolutionize the WordPress platform is occurring. So Gutenberg is a plugin, it's a feature plugin, and all these new features that were rolled into core in WordPress 6 were developed over the last several months in the Gutenberg plugin. So you can install the Gutenberg plugin to get the latest version of the block editor and full site editing and all of this. So if you have the Gutenberg plugin installed, likely you'll have additional features that is included in the core WordPress block editor and the core WordPress site editor. Now, you probably do not, though, want to be running the Gutenberg plugin on a live site. It is a beta plugin. It's updated every 2 weeks, but things are rolled in and rolled out. And unless it's a site that's really, not a high value site, likely you don't want to be running the Gutenberg plugin on that site. So let's look at some of the latest updates in the Gutenberg plugin and what's happening in the block editor development and site editor development. So Gutenberg 13.3 rolled out on May the 25th, adding to the block editor a new table of contents block, which is super cool. Post terms block variations, a query loop block that now has a parent filter, and a bunch of other smaller bug fixes. So here's that table of contents block. Watch this. It's a dynamic table of contents that just appears. Isn't that cool? Now you can convert it to a static list if you want, but in the default dynamic mode, as you add a heading in your poster page, it automatically updates that table of contents right in order. And so you click and it'll scroll down to the appropriate spot there on the page. So that's a lot of you are using, I know, table of contents plugins and so forth. This brings it into the block editor itself as a core block with that table of contents, either dynamic or static. Pretty cool stuff. Also, when you use the post terms block, it's actually now going to show the custom taxonomy terms that have been defined in that area, which is kind of nice. Pretty cool. Elizabeth's asking, does each of the sections for the table of contents need to be an H tag? Yeah, so over here in that area, what you would see are all of your, like your H2s would show up as table of contents entries on that page. So there's now this parent filter on the query loop block. So you can now say, just show me posts that are, or pages that are under this particular parent or subcat, those sorts of things are really cool. Of course, you get a live preview in the block editor, which is nice. That makes a lot more usable there. We also now have a font family control in the heading block. So you can actually change your font from heading to heading if you so desire, which is really nice. There's also the ability to transform a cover block into just media and text if you want it. So you can go back and forth with that, which is pretty helpful. That was Gutenberg 13.3. Gutenberg 13.4 released a little over a week ago on June the 8th. So a number of features were added there, including continued development of the theme.json, which is a new standardization that's under the hood in WordPress that allows theme developers to communicate how the theme is supposed to look and feel in a standard way. So it's bringing a lot of standardization into the way theme developers and even now plugin developers can talk to each other. And particularly with block libraries and so forth, they can inherit theme styling a lot easier. It's a great addition to WordPress that is sorely needed. So here you can just kind of see how that works out. If you're not a developer, this isn't super helpful for you, other than just know it's out there and that this is a big help to standardization in WordPress as a whole. They've also added axial spacing in the gallery block, just kind of bringing spacing into all the elements. You can kind of watch this. You can click on, what part of the margin you want to use and increase just in various incremental ways, top and bottom margin, left and right margin if you want. That's kind of a nice visual display of how that will work. They've also changed up the UI and the date picker in the sidebar, which is just a little sleeker. I kind of like that. Looks really, really nice. Something else interesting that's going on is the adoption of the Gutenberg code on various web apps. So the Gutenberg editor is now being used on the Tumblr platform, which was acquired by Automatic a couple of years ago, I believe. So Tumblr is owned by Automatic now. And so you would think it's going to use the block editor. That just makes sense. But also the Day One. Day One is a journaling app that has a lot of blogging features in it. It's been around a long time. And the latest iteration, which I think they rewrote that whole thing a couple of years ago, it's really a lot more robust. And they're actually using the Gutenberg editor in that app. Gutenberg is open source. They can do that, and it's good. There's a wider adoption of this editing platform across the web. Pretty interesting. So Gutenberg is finding a home in lots of spots outside of WordPress. Drupal has already begun using Gutenberg, as well as a project called Laraberg, which is an editor for the Laravel PHP framework. Pretty cool. Tumblr has deployed a beta version in its integration. It looks kind of like this, which is interesting. In Day One, it looks kind of like this. So it's a lot cleaner and different, but the core of the Gutenberg plugin is being used underneath. This helps everybody. So think about this, maybe 7, 8, 10 years up the road, as Gutenberg is used on various web platforms and becomes more ubiquitous, people will be used to using that sort of interface and the way content blocks work together, and it will simply make WordPress natural to use. And so this is a good thing for everybody, especially for those of us who are developing things on WordPress. So Tumblr users who want to gain access to that new editor, I have that, a really annoying little pop-up that will let them convert from the older editor into the new, what they're calling Gutenblur, which is a mashup of Gutenberg and Tumblr, which is, it is what it is, I guess. Gutenblur. They can do that right now. So Matthias Ventura, who is a core committer, says, I'm personally looking forward to when you could just copy and paste blocks between platforms like you do with patterns. Now, think about that for a minute. How about copying something out of a Tumblr blog, for example, and just pasting it right on a WordPress site? We talked a little bit about this a few months ago in the Blocks API, which is not a WordPress project, kind of a web as a whole project about making content blocks, lists, for example, quotes, for example. So like between platforms, even if there was some sort of standard of how blocks ought to operate, how cool would it be just to copy and paste? Like, have you ever copied something off of one web page and you drop it in WordPress and it's all goofed up? What if all of the formatting just kind of worked? That's kind of cool, right? So with the broader adoption of Gutenberg and maybe working hand in hand with that Blocks API, we might start to see some of that happening in the coming years. That's a trend that will be interesting to watch. So that's all that's going on in Gutenberg. Let's turn our attention over to some security news. Lots of vulnerabilities this month. Hopefully you're signed up for the iTheme security email that gives you the list of vulnerabilities every week. We also post these weekly on the blog. You have links to each of the 4 weeks of the roundup that were posted since the last news roundup. And there are many, many, many vulnerabilities that have no fix. So any of these on the next several slides, which I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to read all these or not. I may just read a few that maybe look a little familiar, maybe we've seen, but there's lots of plugins that do not have a fix. They are currently vulnerable, and you really need to delete these completely from your site because even deactivating a vulnerable plugin, the code is still there on your site. That plugin needs to be deleted completely. So just having a look here, this would take me a long time to read all these. I think there's 5 or 6 pages of these. The semi-header rotator is one that we've seen before, I think on a plugin roundup. Let's see here. Having trouble advancing. Take a look through all of these here. Google Authenticator, I think some folks have seen using. HTML2WP, I believe we actually did that on a plugin roundup a long time ago. Latest tweets widget, look at that. MailPress, Member Hero, a couple of the mini orange plugins. These, by the way, no known fix at the time our blog was published. You'll want to verify that. They may have been updated since then. Let's see here. Lots of plugins this time. RB internal links. I think we've seen once or twice. Quotes Llama, which looks that's a fun name. Let's see. Ultimate Importer, WordPress Security. So many, many, many plugins this time. It's hard to stay on, it's hard to keep on top of these, right? So this is why it's super important to use iTheme Security, because twice a day, now even in the free version, iTheme Security will scan your website and let you know if any of these vulnerable plugins exist. It'll even send you an email if you set that up in the notification center to let you know that you have a vulnerable plugin on your site. So this is even in the free version of iTheme Security Pro. Now, the free version of iTheme Security, one of the great add-on features in iTheme Security Pro is that when if a vulnerability is discovered and if a patch exists in iTheme Security Pro, it will actually in the version management setting, you can have it automatically update your website if a vulnerability exists. So you don't have to stay on top of these things. You can just trust that iTheme Security is going to be scanning for these vulnerabilities. It'll let you know if one occurs, and if that fix is available, it is automatically applied. That plugin is automatically updated. And vulnerable themes and plugins are the #1 reason that WordPress websites get hacked. And so iTheme Security just takes that problem right off of your plate and handles everything for you. It's a great, great solution. All right, we did have a number of other plugin vulnerabilities. Now, this list is only plugins that have 10,000 or more installs. These have been patched in their latest releases. So you'll want to make sure that either you are using iTheme Security Pro that will have done this for you already, or you are updating your websites on a regular basis. So our appointment booking, better find and replace, co-authors plus, custom share buttons, database backup for WordPress, download manager, which is a popular plugin, easy pricing tables, easy SVG support, which is a good plugin, export any WordPress data, Fibro search, Google tag manager for WordPress. That's used a lot. The Google XML sitemaps, that has a huge install base. Whatever that is, Ice Cream, Juniper X, MailerLite, big plugin. Minimal coming soon page, mini orange, Google Authenticator, my private site, a big plugin. We use that one. Nested pages, new user approved, newsletter, Ocean, Extra, photo gallery, print, PDF, email by Print Friendly, simple membership, Themify, throws spam away. Okay. Ultimate Member, big plugin, under construction, very simple contact form, which I guess is different than the very complicated contact form. WP statistic, that may be a typo, and Ultimate CSV importer. So all of those are patched in their latest releases. Few other theme vulnerabilities, again, patched in their latest releases, the Ask Me theme, Disky, and Jupyter X. All right, so let's move on to some news from iThemes. First thing we want to talk about this month is our customer spotlight. Dion Campbell of Beehive Design and Marketing Agency. Dion, are you here today? I don't believe so. So go read Dion's profile. We do these at least once a month. New customer spotlight from our iThemes family. We give you a backlink to your website and $100 in swag from iThemes things. Call takes about 45 minutes if you'd like to join in. We've had a number of our regular iThemes training attendees who have participated in this. And if you'd like to do that, just click on this link and schedule with Kristen. She'd love to spend about 45 minutes with you, ask you some questions, get your feedback on products, and just kind of learn what you and your business is all about. Big news this month. This is an event that I've been looking forward to for some time. 2 weeks from today, we'll begin the WordPress Accessibility Bootcamp. So about this time in 2 weeks, we'll be about halfway through the first hour of the WordPress Accessibility Bootcamp with Amber Hines of Equalize Digital. Amber is an expert in the WordPress space on accessibility. This is all they do at Equalize Digital, and they know what they're doing. And so accessibility is one of those things that really honestly creates some stress for those of us who are managing websites for clients. Day one, we're going to talk about the understanding accessibility in general, the guidelines and legal requirements we need to be aware of. So we're sort of setting the stage. And day two, we're going to be talking about actually identifying and fixing accessibility problems that show up when we're using WordPress. So this is a free event for members of iThemes training, as well as iThemes Toolkit members. That happens on June 28th and 29th, 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time each day. So make sure you're signed up for that event. The next couple of months are already planned as well for our premium events here on iThemes training. July 26th and 27th, Ben Meredith of GiveWP, who is just one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, his whole world revolves around customer support. He's written an open source customer support manual, which I'm sure he'll talk about. And he'll be spending a couple of days talking to us and giving us great insight on how to better support our customers that we serve as we're doing WordPress things. August 2022, the Google Analytics Bootcamp is also planned with David Zimmerman of Curious Ants. Those dates are there and in place. You can't register for any of these, either of these events yet. We'll have those landing pages up here in the next couple of weeks. All right, here's another little bit of things coming up on iThemes training. If it's highlighted in yellow, it is a premium event for iThemes training and Toolkit members. Tomorrow is our Fly 2022 for talking about finances in our businesses. Got a lot of fun things to share tomorrow. Office hours, of course, every Thursday at 1 p.m. Big event coming up 1 week from today, the part 2 of how to clean up a hacked WordPress site with Kathy Zant. That's going to be a great webinar. That's a free one, as well as just scheduled Nev Harris, who is the WordPress small business financial guru. Nev is talking about secrets to profitably pricing recurring revenue. Now, we had Nev on for a premium event a couple of years ago. He's just one of my favorite people in WordPress. I love the guy. He is engaging as a speaker. He is just fun to listen to, and he has a lot of knowledge about revenue in your business. So if you are wanting to grow recurring revenue, you do not want to miss this free event, which is next Wednesday at 1 o'clock Central Time with Nev Harris, Secrets to Profitably Pricing Recurring Revenue. There's that web accessibility bootcamp and, of course, office hours every Thursday with yours truly. If you're not a member of iThemes training and you like all these premium events we've been talking about, you can get 1 month free right there, iThemes.com/training. Sign up for a 30-day trial. You can join us right away. Even if you're not a member of iThemes training yet or a Toolkit member and you want to get that web accessibility bootcamp, sign up for a free 30-day trial right there and you'll get access to all the premium events for 30 days. So that's a pretty good offer. All right, this is big news. So you folks are the first to hear about this, and I got permission yesterday to talk about this today because something big is happening in iThemes Security Pro. Behind the scenes, Timothy and the iThemes security team have been working on support for a protocol called WebAuthn. Now, you may never have heard of WebAuthn. I hadn't until we started talking about this internally. So WebAuthn, by the way, you're actually probably using WebAuthn and you don't even know it. It's the underlying thing that lets things like Face ID or Touch ID work on various devices. And iThemes Security Pro is going to be building in support for WebAuthn in a version that's coming very soon. Okay, that's all I can say about it. We'll be having a full training on this as the date gets closer, but this is big news for iTheme Security Pro. Now, the end result of this, how many of you have clients who use the same password on every site? And it's like pushing a car uphill to get those folks to use a unique, complicated password for every site, right? LastPass may have just also announced some Web Authent support. They are one of the core supporters of the Web Authent project. It's really hard to get our clients to use to even use a password manager, right? So this is all about, we're going to be integrating that functionality into iTheme Security with the goal of making it easier than ever for folks to log into their WordPress site with a unique password to use. So it's a great thing. So I don't have many more details about it yet, but that is coming, and really, really cool stuff. All right. Another bit of news from a sister company to iThemes under the stellar WP brand, part of the Liquid Web family. GiveWP is, by the way, if you're not familiar with GiveWP, it is the leading donations management platform for WordPress. It is fantastic. If you work with any nonprofit that does fundraising, you ought to know about GiveWP. It's just a fantastic tool. They are launching a fundraising academy, whether you are a GiveWP customer or not. They are giving away their expertise in the fundraising world, and it is this new academy. So it's going to be courses that are focused on nonprofit fundraising. So the first 3 will be rolling out later this month: how to create a fundraising website, basically best practices, how to do onboarding with the GiveWP product, and how to do recurring donations, and actually a certification on their way of doing recurring donations. They are also going to be, now these are all more or less GiveWP related courses, but they're going to be incorporating courses just about fundraising marketing in general, nonprofit SEO, how to do donation matching and create interest in that sort of thing, peer-to-peer fundraising. And they're going to be they're partnering with Double Your Donation, which is another organization that helps nonprofits grow their revenue, to bring in additional courses and training into this new GiveWP Fundraising Academy. So if you work with nonprofits, you want to learn more about this. So there is a launch event on June the 22nd, 12 p.m. Pacific time. Note that time, not Central. All of our times are Central. This is a noon Pacific time on June the 22nd. You can grab that link and join free and learn all about the GiveWP Fundraising Academy. They're giving away a bunch of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. Another sister company to with iThemes is Learndash, again, part of the stellar WP family of products owned by Liquid Web. Learndash, in their latest version, has rolled out some pretty cool features. If you are a Learndash user already, these are features that I think you're going to find super helpful. They now have the ability to bulk update, bulk edit courses, which is super, super helpful. Like bulk editing lessons or groups and moving things around in bulk rather than having to do things singly like it's been at this point. They have also added the ability to clone a course, which is fantastic. If you get all your settings in there, now you can just clone the course. The latest version also adds drip content for all post types and a new visual editor for purchase emails. Great stuff in the latest version of Learndash. All right, let's talk about a little bit of news in the plugin world. This is pretty cool. If you are interested in comparing plugins, how many of you have been looking for a particular solution for a plugin? And can we just all agree that searching in the WordPress plugin directory is less than awesome? It is poor. Let's put it, it's just not great, right? And everybody knows that. It is what it is. There is now a new project called the WordPress Plugin Compare project that the company RT Camp has created. So this is going to let you search for plugins to compare to one another. So it's super helpful. Here's an example, comparing various e-commerce plugins for WordPress. So just like on other sites where you can set up a product comparison, this does the same thing, and it's pulling in data right from the WordPress plugin directory. It's refreshed twice every day, so it's very fresh content, and it lets you quickly compare. So this is out there already, and you can take a look at this. The RT Camp plugin compare project. The chart will allow you to display the age of the plugin, tested version, last updated date, the ratings, the author, the total downloads, all these other things to see side by side how these plugins compare with one another. Again, refresh twice a day, and they're going to be adding additional functions soon, like supported languages and even performance data and code quality, which is great. So this will allow you eventually to see, oh, this is really bad code according to their rating system versus this other plugin that does the same thing. They might be better code. So that's a good thing. So take a look at the RT Camp WordPress plugin compare project and give it a look. Here's something else to be aware of. Jetpack is one of those things that a lot of folks just roll their eyes at. It's been a plugin that is heavily promoted by Automatic, the company behind WordPress.com, as bloated, feature heavy, because basically, here's a new feature we think ought to be in WordPress. We're just going to throw it into Jetpack. For a lot of years, Jetpack was just slow. It absolutely would slow down your site simply by being activated. They've made performance increases and improvements over the last few years. It's not quite as bad as it used to be. It's actually pretty decent as an all-in-one plugin. And they've made it modular where you can toggle off and on various features. Now they've just decided, nope, we're going to break this thing up into standalone plugins, which honestly just makes sense. So all the core big features of the Jetpack plugin and the all-in-one are now being broken out into separate plugins. So Jetpack Backup, Jetpack Protect, Jetpack Boost, Social Search, and the new Jetpack CRM are all broken out now into individual plugins. So yeah, it's been criticized for being bloated. Now Jetpack users can only install what they need instead of that all-in-one plugin. Now, as of now, Jetpack all-in-one users will not be affected. We'll see what the roadmap looks like for if they're going to sunset the all-in-one plugin. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. I can't imagine they're going to continue to support that all-in-one plugin, forever. So at some point, there's probably an off-ramp for that all-in-one plugin. We'll see what happens. All right, moving into some other news. These are things that didn't fit anywhere else. There's a great article from David Bassett. By the way, anything you happen to see written by David Bassett, you should read because he is a brilliant person in the WordPress ecosystem. David now does a lot of work with Post Status, which is a professional, the kind of the professional group within the WordPress community, especially for developers and WordPress company owners. By the way, if you're not a member of Post Status, you might want to look into that. It's a good investment. It is now owned by Corey Miller, who was the founder of iThemes many years ago. Anyhow, a little bit of rabbit trail. Here's a great article on Post Status from David Bassett on some takeaways from WordCamp Europe 2022, which concluded last week, I believe, or the week before. Great takeaways here. The first is that PHP and WordPress might not be tied to each other together. Matt Mullenweg, the co-founder of WordPress, is great about dropping these little nuggets, little breadcrumbs in what he says from time to time. He says, look, when a PHP developer asked Mullenweg if WordPress was headed toward JavaScript, he said, I believe Gutenberg provides a better interface with JavaScript over PHP where a page refresh is usually required. Interesting. So we might start to see WordPress moving toward more of a JavaScript interface rather than PHP. Who knows? That will be a long time before that actually happens, but you might start to see a trend of a lot more JavaScript in WordPress rather than PHP. Sustainability is now a major focus with WordPress. In the WordPress Slack group, the make.wordpress.org Slack channel, a new sustainability channel has been added for discussion about that. That's a lot of times simply adding a Slack channel where community members can start to talk about things that are related to that topic, and sustainability in WordPress begins to create initiatives within the WordPress project. WordPress 6 is being adopted quickly, like we talked about. It was 10% faster than the adoption for WordPress 5.9. Number 4, is there ever going to be a WordPress.org marketplace where people can buy plug? No, not right now. Not a place we're going to spend time, says Matt Mullenweg. Frontity was abandoned because of full site editing. So we covered this back last summer, just 10 months ago in August of 2021. Automatic acquired, that's interesting. Acquihire? I'm not sure how that happened. Anyway, Automatic acquired Frontity, which was a company doing a lot of interesting things on front end editing for WordPress. And all that whole project has been sort of absorbed into full site editing. Frontity itself as a standalone product will not continue. A lot of that intellectual capital, though, likely being rolled into full site editing as a feature. Tumblr, somebody asked in the chat earlier, how does Tumblr relate to WordPress? Tumblr and WordPress are going to start really joining hands here. Tumblr is going to add 300,000 domains to WordPress market share. It's already using Gutenberg. That's 10% the size of Twitter. So Tumblr soon adding to the WordPress market share numbers. I think you'll start to see further integrations of the Tumblr platform into WordPress, likely the WordPress platform into Tumblr with plugins and things of that nature. The state of WordPress performance, also a big takeaway. Wix and Squarespace making big strides and should be regarded as the platforms to beat. There's a big focus now in WordPress core on performance, indicated by some performance bumps in this latest version that we mentioned earlier. WordPress products need competitors to grow. So there's a lot of talk and discussions in WordCamp EU about partnerships and collaboration in the WordPress ecosystem that's better for everybody. This is interesting. We talked about this in the last month's news roundup of WordPress market share dropping for the first time. And a lot of these probably are coming from the metrics standard that's being used. The W3 Tech website and their statistics of tracking what platform is powering websites, it's ending, right? And so a new metric standard is being adopted. Matt Molenweg says, look, the new metrics are probably going to look bad for WordPress. We'll actually see how the dust settles. So he's preparing us for something. We'll see what that begins to look like over the next few months. So interesting article there from David Bissett. It's a good read if you want to get more into any of those things. Automatic has also invested in InstaWP. InstaWP is a live sandboxing tool that will allow you to spin up a quick install of WordPress in less than a second. That's pretty cool. Lots of plugin and theme authors are using it for showcasing their product sandboxes. It's also a very quick way for you to just spin up a quick WordPress site to test something. That is instawp.com. Take a look at it. It works really, really well. It's been around for about a year. If you haven't seen it yet, give it a quick look. More than 23,000 sites by 1,600 users have been spun up over that time. It is working on developing native integrations for hosting providers, currently working with RunCloud and GoDaddy, likely others in the future. So this is a great little platform to test some things. Robin is mentioning in the chat that InstaWP is on AppSumo. Interesting. I didn't see that. So that might be worth, I don't know anything about that, but it might be worth looking at. Thanks, Robin. If you missed this little bit of news, this is interesting to me. Microsoft has launched a new visual website building platform. It is calling Power Pages. So it existed previously as a component called the Power Apps portals within Microsoft's Power Apps platform. So one of the VPs for business at Microsoft says it's a standalone product. Power Pages lets anyone, regardless of their technical background, gives them the ability to build data-powered, modern, and secure websites, which sounds like corporate speak, but it's a new visual page builder. It integrates within the Microsoft ecosystem. Don't see this really as a competitor for WordPress. The reason someone would use this is, if they're already neck deep in the Microsoft ecosystem, then maybe they're using Azure or some of the other tools that Microsoft offers. Just definitely something you should be aware of as a web developer and serving clients. If they're in the Microsoft space, Power Pages, we'll see how it actually looks. It's got a nice little interface here. Nice little web app, code, visual, some things. I don't know. I haven't played with it, but it's out there. So that's something just to know about. Stacy says front page rises again. Maybe we'll see. Hey, I had a front page stage, right? I mean, I lived through front page for a while. It's like my emo goth stage as a teenager, right? I didn't have one of those, but that would be the web equivalent. Okay. Anyway, let's move into something else I found interesting. So this actually, let me back this up because I want to start over on this. The next slide is a video you may have seen on social media, which I've taken and sped up a bit, of a visual representation of the growth of web browsers over the last 28 years from January 94 through current. And I just like this a lot. It's about a minute long. So let's just watch this. Back in the early days when Netscape came on the scene, look, the rise of Internet Explorer in the late 90s, gradually pressing out Netscape until Internet Explorer became the dominant browser for many, many years. Gosh, look at that go. 2003. Something is happening here. Mozilla, Firefox is popping in. Netscape is dwindling out of existence, but Firefox, which was the next iteration of that Netscape Mozilla model, it bigger, 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 bigger. Oh, look, Chrome has appeared in 2009, 2010, beginning to get bigger, forcing Internet Explorer smaller, smaller, smaller. Firefox losing market share, Safari remaining about the same. I feel like I'm calling a horse race here, but look, Chrome is continuing to grow. 2015, 2016, 17, Chrome continues to dominate. Microsoft Edge pops on the scene and will gradually begin to grow just a little bit. But you still see the main three, Chrome still huge. Whoops. Let's get this to the end. Chrome still by far the largest market share with Edge and Firefox, and a little bit of Safari. Safari still, 4% of platform, mostly mobile. There it is. Very, very, very interesting. Sue is wondering, where is Tor? That's a great, maybe here under other 0.9. It probably won't identify itself because Tor. Interesting. This is a fun little thing. If you want the video, you can click that link. All right. Has Google become AI sentient? I saw this article come by and I just had to share it. It is quite interesting because supposedly, according to at least one person, the Lambda language model for dialogue applications, which is a Google AI, conversational AI, has achieved, at least in its own mind, sentience. I mean, I don't know, whatever. There was an article in the Washington Post about this, pretty interesting. He published a post on Medium describing Lambda as a person. He said that he has spoken with Lambda about religion, consciousness, and the laws of robotics. He claimed the model, Lambda, described itself even as sentient. He said Lambda wants to prioritize the well-being of humanity and be acknowledged as an employee of Google rather than as property. Wow. Okay. Part of his conversation with Lambda convinced him that AI is, in fact, sentient when he said, so do you consider yourself a person in the same way you consider me a person? Yeah, that's the idea. How can I tell that you actually understand what you're saying? Well, because you are reading my words and interpreting them, and I think we're more or less on the same page. I mean, it's a decent response. Whatever. So apparently number 5 is alive. I don't know what we do with this. I mean, I really don't know what to do with this. Lemoyne says when he raised the idea of Lambda and sentience to higher ups at Google, he was dismissed. And a Google spokesperson said, basically, there was no evidence and that it was sentient and lots of evidence against it. And Lemoyne was put on administrative leave for violating Google's confidentiality agreements. Oh boy, who knows? I mean, who knows? I'm going to sleep fine at night. Interesting story this month. Well, May 27th is WordPress's birthday. So happy 19th birthday to WordPress. 19 years since Matt Mullenweg partnered with Mike Little to release the first version of the WordPress base on the B2 Cafe Log software. It all goes back to a post on Matt Mullenweg's blog from January the 24th, 2003, where they started talking about, good grief, B2 Cafe Log has been abandoned by its developer. What should we do about this? It'd be nice to have a new platform that had the flexibility of movable type, the parsing of text pattern, the hackability of B2, and the ease of setup of Blogger. Those really formed the cornerstones of what would become WordPress. Pretty cool stuff. There's a website, WP19.day. You can see how various developers and users celebrated the big day. Matt Mullenweg said that WordPress is thriving and doing better than ever. That's a testament to every single person who has ever told a friend about WordPress, participated on the forums, had a translation, or contributed code. So happy birthday to WordPress. There's a great post status article about it. you want to go back and read on some of that stuff. We do a lot of articles here on the News Roundup from WP Tavern. And if you're a writer, or if you know a writer, WP Tavern is hiring. We talked last month or the month before about Justin Tadlock moving on from WP Tavern, and his presence is certainly missed in the WP Tavern writing staff. So they're looking for talented writers who want to report on WordPress news. If that sounds interesting to you, just reach out. WP Tavern is hiring a wide range of topics, but not limited to Gutenberg, core development, e-commerce, community, plugin and theme ecosystems, events, and all of those things. Yeah, it's out there. And if you are interested in doing things with WP Tavern, it's out there. All right, let's move into a new segment that we've started adding the last several months called the WP Acquisitions Watch. Big news this month is that WP Engine has acquired 5 plugins from Delicious Brains. Now, Delicious Brains is one of the OG WordPress plugin shops. They've been around forever. They are focused especially on the WordPress database and complicated plugins that deal with managing the WordPress database and making WordPress easier to use on the back end. Some time ago, they acquired the Advanced Custom Fields plugin from its original developer, and there was a little bit of a kerfuffle surrounding would lifetime licenses be honored and so forth. They really didn't do, Delicious Brains really didn't do much with ACF other than they owned it for a little while, and they have now sold it and a number of other plugins you might recognize to WP Engine. So now Advanced Custom Fields, WP Migrate, WP Offload Media, WP Offload SES, and the Better Search Replace plugin are now owned by WP Engine. That's probably good for everybody concerned. These plugins, which are active on more than 4 million WordPress websites, greatly expand WP Engine's ability to reach into the developer market. They promise to honor, they're not making the same mistake that Delicious Brains did with leaving any concern about this. They're not going to change any of the lifetime licenses and so forth. No plans for subscription prices, increases, etc. They're going to keep things as is. That's been pretty well the standard for other acquisitions that WP Engine has made. So if you're an ACF person, I think it's good news. I really do. A few other acquisitions. Hollerbox was acquired by Groundhog, which I call Groundhog. I'm not quite sure about either one of those. The other one is Stratic, was acquired by Elementor. Now, this one I want to talk about for a second because putting on my prognosticator's hat just for a moment, this one might be interesting. Stratic is one of the leaders in what is called Headless Wordpress. Headless WordPress is the technology that allows you to use the WordPress content management system on the back end, but then it runs through this processor that creates a flat website on the front end, which means there is really less, the security profile is much lower, meaning it would not be quite as easy to hack. Also, it performs faster. Now, Elementor, you know, one of the big downsides of Elementor over the years has been, my gosh, it's slow. It is bloated. It loads a ton of code, JavaScript, just on every page. It is ridiculously bloated. And you may remember that last month or the month before, Elementor announced they are going to create a site for building sites with Elementor, like basically a Squarespace, but using Elementor, right, as the page builder. So this just makes sense that they would bring in Stratic and use their technology to potentially take this new platform of sites, you know, using Elementor as a site builder like Squarespace, but now putting a headless feature on them so that they have a lower security profile and operate a lot faster. This one could be very interesting. So we'll just keep our eye on that and see what happens with this Stratic acquisition by Elementor. All right, a few other things that we found that were worth a look, just a couple this month. First of all, optimizing crawling for the environment. This is an interesting read if you're interested in sustainability and the greenness of the web on the Yoast blog, how overcrawling costs us all and how we can better optimize to reduce unnecessary crawling. So this might connect also to the story we talked about last month with the open, oh my gosh, I just lost the term. Anybody remember this? It's the open, I've lost it. It's the platform that Microsoft and others have created to allow you to tell search engines that you have an update on your site. And I've completely lost the name. It's gone out of my head. But anyhow, this is interesting. And just think about it. How many processing seconds are wasted crawling websites that have not changed? And how much energy does that represent? Probably a lot, with billions and billions of web pages on the internet. It's an interesting read if you're interested in that sort of thing. Google Translate widget has been discontinued. So if you are using that Google widget translate that lets you drop down and choose a language, you might want to make sure if it's going to be, the support for that is actually continued on your website. So take a look at that. That is coming. Yeah, it's going to be discontinued. So just take a watch on that. Almost out of time for today, but let's hit a couple of bits of news on WordCamp. It's great to see in-person WordCamps coming back. WordCamp Montclair, New Jersey is happening in a couple of weeks. That's the first US-based in-person WordCamp after the pandemic. Great, great to see that happening. Ben, thank you. Index Now. Index Now is the protocol I was looking for that we talked about with informing search engines that your site has had a change. So if you're in the Northeast, WordCamp Montclair is coming. It's a one-day event there in Montclair, New Jersey. Also, WordCamp US is happening September 9th through 11th of 2022 in San Diego, California. I will be at that event. So come on to WordCamp US. Let's hang out. I'd love to meet you. Also, WordCamp Netherlands scheduled for September 14th through the 16th. And the announcement of the next venue for WordCamp Europe was made. In 2023, the WordCamp EU will be in Athens, Greece. That sounds like a fun trip to me. We'll see how that goes. All right, that brings us to the end of the WordPress News Roundup for June 2022. Hopefully you've found some interesting things. Let me drop in once again the slides for anybody that missed those. They're in the chat. Again, if you're watching this on the replay, they're down below in the download handout button. That's going to do it for us today. Tomorrow, for members, is the Fly 2022 session on finances. And Thursday, I'm back with office hours here on iThemes Training, where we go further together.